So this morning I am kind of being with, meditation. I'm in my meditation room, and I had that experience, of being drawn to my bookcase and almost having a book fall out. Have you had that happen? Like it just calls to you. And so the book is by Eric Butterworth, The Universe is Calling, which is one of his books on prayer. And I thought, there's something in here. I don't know what it is. And I open this page. And our virtue today, by the way, is modesty. And I open it up, and inside the book is a very officious-looking piece of paper. It apparently was put in my inbox when I was a student at Unity Village in seminary, and it's addressed from Gladys Branscombe, who was our Dean of Student Life when I was there at the Unity School of Religious Studies. And it's addressed to the first and second year classes and faculty. It says, "We have great times here on Halloween Day." And it's actually spelled Holloween. It's usually with an A. So I thought, well, this is interesting. On Halloween Day, many of the employees dress in costumes and fun is had by all. Next paragraph, you may come to school in costume on Halloween Day, Tuesday, October 31st. We must ask you, though, and this is underlined, that you not wear costumes that are too brief or revealing or suggestive or non-appropriate or whatever! Exclamation point. Happy Halloween. I thought, how perfect. I don't remember receiving this at all. Apparently, it was one of those things that I just stuck in the book that I was studying at the time and went on my way. But it really speaks to modesty, doesn't it? From Unity headquarters. I mean, modesty is really it's a controversial topic in terms of its cultural ins and outs, the opinions and the standards and the rules and regulations of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate in our lives. And yet, I would ask for you today to focus on modesty with me in terms of it being about the motivation that is in your heart, the motivations in our hearts and how we choose to live our lives. So it invites us to be aware of ourselves and aware of others and aware of our environment. Modesty it can sound so puritanical. And I say to you that it is not an anti-pretty or anti-handsome virtue. That modesty really is, it's not based on fads or what's popular or what's not popular. What it really means in a spiritual perspective is that it gives us a door to freedom, a door to self-expression that comes from our hearts, that comes from our Christ mind, and it invites us into that place of questioning ourselves. What is it we're doing or saying or thinking that may have gotten us attention, but gotten us attention in a kind of a sidewards way or a negative way? And how would we be today? So it invites us to step into our Christ selves for freedom, to honor our choices and the choices that others make, to share the credit, give God the glory, and to be motivated from within. The scripture that I chose is in the Message Bible, which is, we have some available in the bookstore. It's from Colossians 3:12-14. So, chosen by God for this new life of love, dress in the wardrobe God picked out for you. Compassion, kindness, humility, quiet strength, discipline. Be even-tempered, content with second place, quick to forgive an offense. Forgive as quickly and completely as the Master forgave you, and regardless of what else you put on, wear love. It is your basic all-purpose garment. Never be without it. When you and I step forward with modesty, that's the place in which we are abiding, isn't it? We don't have to prove ourselves to anyone or have anyone prove themselves to us. It's an opportunity for us to really live moderately in modesty. Modesty actually refers to reverence. To reverently value yourself. Because otherwise, if you are not valuing yourself, you are actually not valuing God. Think of it that way. Think of the largesse of you when you think of your value or the unique value of someone else. Even if they appear to be an enemy, as you hold them in love, you recognize that they're bringing you to you. That's what they're doing. They're driving you with dynamic steering to a place inside you that is beyond inflating and deflating. It's referred to in Buddhism as the middle way. It is, in fact, the Eightfold Path of Buddhism. And so it resides between, this is kind of similar to last week where we had that huge scale that Lisa showed us with our living PowerPoint people. It's that place between indulgence and asceticism, where you and I realize that there's something greater taking place. It's not, yes, the universe is conspiring to bring you to your Christ self. Yes, it is about you being the peace that you want to see, you being the love that you want to see in your life. Yes, it is. And it's not all about you. Because in fact, you, as you see yourself, you'll see others. And as you see others, you'll see yourself. It's this beautiful reflective surface. The Unity minister who wrote this book that I was drawn to, Reverend Eric Butterworth, who used to be at Avery Fisher Hall in Manhattan in New York with his church, is quoted actually in our daily word for July and August, and it was August 4th. The word was infinite, and this is how Eric Butterworth says it. God is not in you in the same sense that a raisin is in a bun. God is in you as the ocean is in a wave. Can I get a God is not in you in the same sense that a raisin is in a bun. God is in you as the ocean is in each and every wave. That realization is enormous. It's a game changer. Because it means that God is the unlimited ocean of infinite energy, of universal energy that cannot be more and it cannot be less, no matter what. It brings us into a state of high humility. That's the temperature today, guys. It's high humility. We got high humility going on here in Naples, Florida. So I am not a raisin in a bun. Please affirm this with me. I am not a raisin in a bun. I am the ocean in this wave. I am the ocean in this wave. Look at you. You look like a sea out there. And we have a cultural term that refers to sea change. The sea change that is taking place in you and in me is the recognition that we are made of pure light. Whoa, let's just throw it all up in the air. Yeehaw. That we are made of pure light, nothing less than the stars. And when we get that, we start treating ourselves in that way. Now, granted, a lot of us, a lot of you grew up with a religiosity, with some kind of philosophy and theology that may have taught you a universe. It's called a universe of separate parts. You may have been taught that there is a God and a heaven that is above all, above you, perhaps even inaccessible to you. You may have then been taught that man and creation, woman and creation, all living things then are in Middle Earth. Let's land it here on this earth plane. And that then there is below us a hell. And in that cosmology, there's not that sense of oneness. And I say to you that if we look at the symbol of 8, which is very big, there was a huge opening yesterday in the realm of light with our planets, that in this movement of 8, which means as above, so below, and we turn it on its side, it is this. And what does that mean? Infinity. There is this as above, so below going on, and the infinity, the infinitesimal ocean of you is being called forth for you to express as the wave that you are. Will that wave come to shore and dissipate? Yes, it will. Will that wave change in its momentum and its movement? Yes, it will. Will it come back into the sea of life? Yes, it will. And it will come forth once again. That movement of consciousness never ends. And that, in fact, as we know God to be, is the movement of love itself. And so Jesus said to us, even with this template that we'd been given and we taught, and we even kind of speak of still, of there being this, division between us and the God of our being, some threat of, where we have to buy major fire insurance, to not get there. Like, what can I do to stay out of there? We now know that these are not places. They are aspects of our consciousness. Anybody here been to hell? Raise your hand with me. Yeah? You've been in that place of fear where you feel like you don't know what to do and you can't move and you're, that's hell. And then it's a miracle. Because in that place of hell, you have something touches you, and you realize that this is not hell. This is a place that I'm dwelling in consciousness, and there is everything else is available for me. God is good all the time. And when we recognize that and we let just the tiniest bit of light in, boom, it takes off. God has God's way in you. I have an affirmation I want to say. I want you to just think about it after I say it and then repeat it with me. And I stand by this no matter what. God is a hoot. Is that true in your life? Because the Holy Spirit will use everyone and everything to get to you. God is a hoot. That's right. Now, remembering that and that you are made in the image and likeness of God, sometimes you're a hoot, right? But when you're like that, it's just a call back. It's just a comeback. To remember you're part of a God team. You're not on your own. You're not out there on your own. It's not this or that. It's a beautiful coming together. Now, Jesus knew this. Our master teachers that have been on the earth plane and that are here now, the master teacher in you, knows this to be true. Jesus said it this way, I and the Father are one. Just hold your hands in front of you for a moment, will you? So I and the Father are one. I want you to take your pointer fingers here, right? And you've got I and the Father are what? One. So what happens with these fingers? What happens to them? Come on now, let's see it happen. They merge, yes? And actually they transform in the twinkling of an eye into oneness. Jesus had what I'm going to call today an altitude. A-L-L, altitude. His level of consciousness was an altitude. We are one, no matter what, inseparable. We are not our bodies, we are not our minds. We're moving at the speed of God. And he knew that God was expressing through him. So there was nothing for him to brag about, and there was nothing for him to deny. It could not be more, it could not be less. You see modesty in that? And like the ocean, or for us, the Gulf of Mexico, Jesus was constantly, you are given the privilege to constantly empty yourself into that presence and power. Let your wave move forward, knowing that you have every aspect of the ocean of love and life within you. Just let it go. Sometimes you feel small, yes. Sometimes you feel huge, yes. Just let it be and roll with it. Let yourself be emptied as he allowed himself to be emptied into God, so that God might then pour Spirit through him, wholeness and truth through him, light and love through you. And it's a giving up and a giving unto. Because the truth is that you are the precise point of God expressing fully as you. You have that whole ocean of capability within you. And so that is, in the same precise moment, it is humbling beyond measure, and it is empowering beyond your imagination, beyond my imagination. All things are possible. And that's where humility comes in. Because your potential, your potentiality, the Christ in you is exactly the same in each and every sentient being. That's humbling. Because we, with our cones and rods, these cones and rods of our eyes that move at a very, very slow pace, by the way, cannot perceive, they move so slowly that I cannot look with my human eyes at this and see it other than solid. And yet we know from quantum knowing, and we have machinery that can actually look into that and see the spaces between the molecules. Yeah, it's moving very slowly. So slowly that it looks solid. So slowly that I can knock on it, and yet it's a living expression. You are a living expression, and you are constantly changing and shifting and being called to modestly hold that space, appropriately, more appropriate than ever before. Hold that space, honor your space on this God team, one with the other. This Thursday, I'm going, and I've been talking about this incrementally, but this Thursday is the Thursday that I'm going to New York City. David's coming with me for one night. It's going to be great. My family's all coming in, all my brothers, all my sister-in-laws, lots of friends flying from different states. We're all going in to see my son as a lead in An American in Paris on Broadway. I mean, that's great. We want to celebrate that. We want to, clap. And let me tell you what happens. What has happened to me for years, because I've had two sons that have performed and have been amazing. They're just gifts in my life. But when somebody does something like that, people come up to you. They come up to me as the mother, the stage mom, right? And they come up to me and say, wow, that's fantastic. How did he get that? Did you do that? Were you in theater? Was his father in theater? I'm like, no, his dad's PhD is in physics. And, but you know what? Here's my standard response. And I've developed this through the years, right? My standard response has been to date, until this particular sermon, has been, well, yes. In fact, I was in theater. And I started dancing when I was 3. And that's true. My mother started me in ballet, tap, and jazz when I was 3. I was the only girl. I was the youngest. That's when I started. That's true. But I never danced professionally. And the companies that I was in theater with were small, local, community companies. And it was great, and it was a blast. But I never took it to the next level. And it was with this that God brought me to the place of recognizing I have different gifts. And I don't need to make myself a part of the glory of what it is that my son is doing, other than the fact that I drove him to the theater. And I paid for his dance lessons. My husband and I did that together, and Justin did that as well, and so what? It was Garen that, using the gifts that God has given him, took it to the level that he has taken it. And he is not the quintessential dancer and singer of all time. He is Garen Scribner, doing what Garen Scribner has learned and loves to do. And when the question has ever come up, from the time he was in San Francisco Ballet through living in Holland dancing and then now being on Broadway, when the question has come up, what do I do, what should I do, it's always been, Garen, what are you most inspired by and how can you be most inspiring? Go to your heart. He is, in fact, in truth, one of the most humble, modest people that I know. He's a dog-loving guy who lives in Brooklyn, who puts his dog in the basket in the back and rides his bike, helmet and all the way to the theater and does what he does. He's a dog-loving, yoga kid. And has he excelled? Yes. Am I going to be proud of him? Yes. I'm taking tissues. I got them now. I'm taking them with me. Every time I think of it, I start to cry. But there's a modesty in that. Because when we know that it's God expressing, I don't know what it is you do, but you do something so magnificently. God is expressing through you in specific and amazing ways. And though there are unexpected turns and unexpected twists in your life, what you do better and can do even more brilliantly as you give God the glory for it. And recognize it's not all about you. It's letting that ocean move through you and being the wave that you are. When Jesus said you're the light of the world, I just love that scripture because that means that when you shine, we all shine. So one of the marks of modesty is that we have a sense of our own worth, that we have a sense of our own value. We don't have to prove it. We don't have to look for proof. We can just live in gratitude. Deepak and Oprah just finished a whole meditation series that's core was gratitude. It is the opening up. It is a humbling place. And so the call really is to just bear witness. To bear witness to the one that the most outstanding affirmation that I think unity has and gives you. To bear witness to the one presence and one power active in your life and active in this whole universe. God, the good, omnipotence. I mean, think about it. You've played on sports teams before, probably. I'm going to ask you a little questionnaire here. What if you played really well and you were on a basketball team? Some of you have played on a basketball team. Let's just pretend that you've played a basketball game and you played really well and your team won. I'm going to ask you, would you, A, take all the credit for it? Even if you'd shot the last hoop, you'd made the last basket, would you take all the credit for it? B, would you take no credit for it? Would you pretend that you had nothing to do with it? Or C, would you share the credit? A, B, or C? C. Or D, would you give God the credit? Tricky, huh? Would you give God the credit and realize that it was God moving? That was the speed of God. The shots were God moving, expressing through them, through you. And that's the way it always is. That's what you and I have the opportunity to look at in this time. And when the virtue of modesty is in play, what happens is you and I can stand down when it's appropriate. We can stand down and let somebody else shine. How beautiful is that? And it may mean that we give up our position for something greater to take place. The following never happened. And yet, it's a great parable that warns us against being too full of ourselves and to stay aware of who and what we are. And it goes like this, quote unquote. Believe it or not, this is the transcript of an actual radio conversation between a U.S. naval ship and the Canadian authorities off the coast of Newfoundland in October 1995. Many of you have heard this. Listen again. The ship says, "Please divert your course 0.5 degrees to the south to avoid a collision." Reply comes, Recommend you divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid collision. Ship says, this is the captain of a U.S. Navy ship. I say again, divert your course. Reply, no. I say again, you divert your course. Ship says, this is an aircraft carrier USS whatever. Divert your course now. Reply, this is a lighthouse. It's your call. I love that. We face that every day. Don't we face that every day? And there we are, these two beings, or these two groups, or whatever it is. And we think, no, you. No, you. No, you. No, you. Until we come to the place of realizing it's like that Hindu namaste that it's global now. People are globally using namaste. And in this case, it means the light in me sees the light in you, right? And I will pay attention to that. Count Leo Tolstoy, whom I'm sure many of you have read, a very gifted Russian novelist who lived between 1828 and 1910, told of seeing an emaciated man on the street, and he was distraught because Leo had been looking in his pockets and could not find coin to give this man. And so he said to him, how can I help you, brother? I have nothing to give you. And the man, looking at Leo Tolstoy, said, you have already given me the greatest gift. You have called me your brother. This week, you and I are going to have all kinds of opportunities to exalt ourselves or to exalt someone else, to give God the glory or think it's all about me or it's not about me at all. I'm not enough. You're not enough. I ask you to remember that God is the answer. Whatever your question is, whatever your situation is, remember that you are not like a raisin in a bun. God is moving through you as the ocean moves through a wave. Jesus in Luke 14, the translation is, for all who exalt themselves will be humbled, made modest, more modest. And those who humble themselves, those of us who give God the glory, who recognize the one source, the one presence, will be exalted. And we all come to that place. Why not come to that place now? It's looking for the answer and being willing to find it. It's a process. Lowell Fillmore, son of Charles and Myrtle, our founders, wrote it this way. The answer. When for a purpose I had prayed and prayed and prayed until my words seemed bare with arduous use, and I had knocked and asked and knocked and asked again, and all my fervor brought no hope, I paused to give my weary brain a rest and ceased my human anxious cry. In that still moment, after self had tried and failed, there came a glorious vision of God's power. And lo, my prayer was answered in that hour. Let's you and I this week very consciously be aware of the virtue of modesty flowing through us. And let's lift up our eyes, knowing once again, and this is going to stick with you because I've repeated it several times, God is not a raisin, and I don't care whose bun. God is the ocean moving through you as a wave. God bless you. Have a glorious week.